Hey, welcome back
Hello.
to Bums in the Bleacher. We had a lot to talk about. It was a good week. I'm super excited. Praz, it was good to see you last week. We'll obviously talk about that, but I am Drammy Sosa, John, aka the Dram Daddy, on Instagram and Twitter, and we got Mike Praz, the Praz Master, also at Bums in the Bleacher on Twitter as well. So, Mike, how's it going, man? How you doing?
I'm doing amazing. This has been a hell of a week. I'm sure as you all have seen, you know, I've been on, during the game, the WGN morning news the next day, and then ESPN. Come on, HBIC. Listen, later in the show, I didn't start the game with my shirt off. Okay. Later in the show, it might come on. But yeah, it's been unreal seeing my big fat ass on every freaking news outlet you can imagine from Wednesday night out in the bleachers. I thought the meme that we shared on Monday of me just holding up the cup snake and looking very displeased with everything was going to be the meme, but no, this takes it to a whole nother level at this point.
Yeah, what a wild week, man. I mean, it's funny because like we're getting all the requests for OnlyFans accounts now for the bums. So
Exactly. Got Johnny and me now. Yep.
I know two of you. I can't. What are we gonna do with two of you, man? I don't know if the bums can handle that much
Yeah.
sexy. It's too much. But
Only bums.
oh man, but what a week, man. What a great week to start out baseball. I know you and I talked kind of last week. This is right after the Rangers series that started off. They lost 2 out of 3, coming home for a quick homestand of 6 games and great results. We were hoping for some really good results. We were hoping for a Rocky sweep. We both predicted they were going to lose 2 or 3 to the Dodgers. They did not. They went 2-1 against the Dodgers and had a 5-1 homestand to start off the year. So great start.
Yeah, absolutely great start. And I mean, even with a team as bad as the Rockies, you can't always guarantee a sweep is going to take place, but
Yeah, it's still
I
baseball.
mean, yeah, it's still baseball. Anything can happen. Hell, I mean, we, you know, damn near blew the game on Wednesday night. I was actually thinking personally, like I was saying this to like Aaron on the way back and like to some of the guys that like I was thinking through my head, like after I had my 15 seconds of fame on TV and the Rockies wound up coming back and tie it. I thought for a second I was going to get labeled as like the new Bartman or the new Billy Goat or something like that for the Cubs blowing that lead. But thank you very much to Seiya Suzuki for getting that go-ahead hit in the 8th inning to seal the deal there.
Yeah, I
Uh,
mean, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say too, like came very close, to blowing that game. The game we were at on Friday, which we'll get into more, but we were getting pretty nervous there at the end. The Dodgers did have the tying run on base at the time, and it took a Michael Busch diving catch at first base to end it that saved at least one run, maybe two. So, the Cubs, while we're definitely happy that they went 5-1, on this homestand, very easily could have been 4-2, 3-3. But baseball is a crazy game, and things have been going the Cubs' way, and we'll take it at this point.
Absolutely. And I mean, we had a blast, and obviously we'll talk about Friday a little bit more, as we kind of get into the show a little bit. But like I said, hell of a week. And, I wanted to start off the show by highlighting you, Praz. I mean, you are the homestand hero this week.
Yep.
You were at every game this week, if I'm not mistaken, correct? Or did you miss?
Well, the night that we recorded, I wasn't there on Tuesday
Okay.
night last week. Yeah, but I was there Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, and yesterday. Yeah, I was there 5 out of the 6 games. Sadly, they didn't go perfect 5-0. But I'll take 4-1 out of it. I think it's the fact that the one game they lost, it was a Sox fan I was with that maybe have cursed them into that loss. But yeah, that was an unreal stretch. I mean, I can't think of the last time like I don't want to get way too over my skis with this, but this is almost reminiscent of like what's that one Jordan fact about like there was a Bulls team he was on that started like 0-3 and everyone started panicking And then from like that point going forward, to like the rest of his Bulls career, like they never lost more than 3 in a row. I'm not saying that's going to happen with the Cubs this year, but after starting off 0-2 in Texas and to go
Yeah.
on the run that they have over these last few games at home, it almost has made me forget entirely about all the bad things that happen in Texas.
Yeah, and we'll get to it. We're going to talk about that offense, right? The offense really showed up, scoring tons of runs, with the exception of the second game that was sandwiched in between those Dodger games. But the one that we went to, and then the really the what do you call it? The series closer with Shota Imanaga pitching.
Yep.
Correct? It was Sunday, right? The big rain delay. So yeah,
Yep.
that was a heck of a homestand, man. You were all over the internet. It was phenomenal to see. Just completely brilliant. To see out there. I've got to post
Definitely.
I've got some stuff that I need to post here. So I'm going to switch over here
For
because it was
sure.
saved under the wrong thing, but uh got to show this. This is from our game to Sorry, you're muted.
No, I did the sound actually play of like Go Cubs Go playing, and because I didn't hear it.
I did. I muted the sound just because it was so loud, but that was part of the series. That was a lot of fun. It was the game that you and I went to. Again, thank you. Shout out to you for the tickets. The good times.
Absolutely.
Also, wanted to show off a little bit of this montage here.
Yes. For those who didn't see too, there was also a really good little video clip that Aaron put together for us too of set to Milkshake bringing all the boys to the yard.
Yep.
So it's been unreal. It's been awesome. I got to shout out one guy who here we go. Okay, yeah, Mitch. Shout out Mitch P because he was like the other heavyset guy that was like out there shirtless with me. Who I apparently have like a bunch of mutual friends with too because he lives out by me as well. I
Because
just
with
found out
shirtless guys just find a way to bond. Yeah.
couple of shirtless heavyset guys in the left field bleachers, man. We find common ground everywhere. But yeah, he like him and the one other skinny guy, they got shirtless first in front of me, like right as the Rockies pitching change was happening. And I turned back to my friends and like I got a little bit of encouragement from them. I was like, you know what? Like there's barely anyone here and there's a good chance that we're gonna get on TV if this happens. So I'm getting in there and I'm getting shirtless and I don't care what I look like because I'm out in the bleachers and I'm having a good time, damn it.
It's awesome, man. I mean, it was, like I said, super great time. I mean, I'm looking at the scores here. So I wanted to go over some of the scores of the week, right? Because we saw just some really great baseball from the Cubs throughout the week. And again, take it with a grain of salt. They were playing the Rockies. We recognize that right away. But looking at going all the way back to Monday, Monday was the home opener, 5-0 win. It was a beautiful game. Imanaga went out there. Obviously, we're going to talk a little bit more about him, but 6 strong innings, scoreless ball, a lot of strikeouts, racking up the swing and misses. And again, we know that the Rockies, we know who they were, right? Just kind of going into that series. Then the Cubs go on to win 12-2 the next game. Great game pitched by Javier Assad, another pitcher who went scoreless in
Shout out
his
Baloney
appearance.
Assad, man. Peter Fonseca Lake lookalike.
Love it, man. And then obviously they finished the visit with a little bit of a close call with the Rockies. They were up. I want to say they were up 8-2 in that game, if I'm not mistaken, right?
8-2 at the time that I got on TV, and then yeah, it kind of all went to shit in the 8th inning. I think it was the Rockies.
Yeah.
The Rockies got a run in the 7th. And then they scored 5 in the 8th off of it was either Yency Almonte or Hector Neris. Obviously, I don't have the best memory of these things because, as you can see, what my condition was that night. But yeah, a little bit of a shaky bullpen effort. Did get a Seiya Suzuki home run earlier in the night, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Had the go-ahead hit. I mean, this offense is firing on all cylinders to start the year too. Like I think they're averaging about
Absolutely.
6.5 runs per game. Only the Braves have been better to start this year. Uh, yeah, I mean, look, it wasn't just against the Rockies either. I mean, we when we went on Friday, I don't know if you want to
Hmm.
just dive right into this now, but like got a little
Sure.
nervous there because that was Bobby Miller, an up and coming pitching prospect with the Dodgers that in a cup of coffee last year looked really good, had, shoved
Hmm.
against the Cardinals his last time out too. So, and it was Kyle Hendricks on the bump for the Cubs, and they get off to kind of a shaky start to start that game too, with Ian Happ giving away an out. Dodgers score 2 runs in that inning. Kyle Hendricks only lasts about 4 innings as it was. But Cubs offense in the second inning, after striking out the side, Bobby Miller did in the bottom of the first.
Hmm.
Cubs offense came out firing in the second. Never looked back from there. Scored 5 in the second. Dodgers did make it interesting by making it close, but it was one that it was a game that honestly makes me believe that like the Cubs could be a team that could hang in there with the Dodgers if it really came down to them in the playoffs.
Yeah, it's for me, it's like it's one of these series that it's so early in the year to get like super jazzed up about, but it is an important series, for momentum, right? To say, hey, Dodgers came into town, you took 2 out of 3, um, against the arguably the best team in the National League, right? I mean, you could make the argument maybe it's Atlanta, maybe it's LA,
Right.
but taking 2 out of 3 super important, and it also it's the way that they did it. It was with their offense, right? Like, I mean, the pitching. We knew that series was going to be tough because that lineup, that Dodger lineup has no
Definitely.
breaks, right? There's like literally no break in that lineup where if you're a pitcher, you can
Right.
kind of be like, okay, I can pitch around this guy or I could pitch straight to this guy. Every at bat is like we talked about it when Gavin Lux is your number 9 hitter. It's an impressive lineup.
Absolutely. I mean, and that was, especially on Friday too, because the Saturday game was when Will Smith was on the bench, but I think going into this series, Will Smith was the leading National League hitter too as well, and he was hitting 6th or 7th.
Mhm.
So, and he didn't even play every game either. Obviously, as a catcher, you're not going to play every game, but still, like to be able to afford to take that guy out of a lineup and still feel confident in your offense. I mean, yeah, that Dodgers team, they're no joke. Absolutely not. Even with their, the flaws that may be in their rotation now, they're a team that you can never count out. I mean, as Mookie Betts said during their like fan fest, like every game that they play is going to be the other team's World Series. And maybe that might not exactly have been the case for the Cubs this week. I mean, I don't know. They didn't seem to me to be any different of a team than they were against the Rockies. Maybe a little bit better than the Rangers, but yeah, good point there, Shane. It also shows that money doesn't buy you a World Series. Money,
For
would
now.
put you in the best possible position to win the World Series, but
Very true.
right. Um, I, I will say game 2 was a very frustrating game,
Yeah.
one that felt like the Cubs could have and should have won. I mean, I get it that once again, you're going up against a really good lineup, although it's slightly
Yep.
less because Will Smith is out of there. You're facing Yamamoto for the first time.
Right.
Um, did you want to make a point? I hope I'm not stepping on anything you
No,
want to
you're
say.
good.
Well, yeah, I mean, the Cubs in the bottom of the first inning of that game wind up loading the bases, nobody out. Friggin' Hap, Bellinger, Suzuki, they all get on base, and then he just strikes out the next 3 guys like it was no big deal.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
And it also, like, I mean, that was a game where I feel like Jordan Wicks pitched pretty well going into the 5th inning, right? I mean, he went 4 2/3. He had 7 strikeouts in that game. He only
yep,
gave up a couple of earned runs. So, I mean, it wasn't like it was a blowout, either. Like they lost 4-1
right.
that game. And it was it was frustrating because they had those opportunities against Yamamoto and just couldn't push any runs across. With a week full of, I mean, again, we're going to talk about it, but that week of offense was just spectacular. So bump in the road kind of sucked, but I wasn't mad at it. I mean, again, it's like it's the Dodgers. You know,
Mhm.
they have a really good team, good lineup. They held them to 4 runs in that game.
Right.
You know, just kind
And
of is what it is.
I guess the one gripe I would have with this game is I kind of wish that Wicks could have tried to get Teoscar Hernandez out instead of immediately going to Quas there. And I mean, Quas, oh my God, that guy, he has become the LVP of this team, if you're asking me.
Yeah, he's awful.
That trade is looking worse and worse every day. I mean, granted, he could just as easily bounce back and have a stretch where he's striking out, like, 5 or 6 guys over his next 4 or 5 appearances, but he's also extremely wild. Wicks at that point had just got he just got past Otani and Freeman, and Teoscar Hernandez, not a bad player, but he's not a player on the same level that that those two guys are. And I maybe later in the year as it goes on, and Jordan Wicks is still relatively young and relatively raw. I would hope that Council would give him a little bit more of a leash to take chances against those type of guys, especially when he only has to record one more out.
Yeah, and it's also this early in the year, right? Where it's like you're not necessarily like on a pitch count or you're watching innings at this point of the year, right? Like it's pretty early on. You would think you'd let the guy go a little bit, but one thing I know we forgot to talk about pre-show that I know we wanted to talk about on the show because we were at Friday's game. This was the Busch Revenge series.
Yes.
So we got to see Michael Busch, who was traded from the Dodgers to the Cubs for a couple teenage prospects, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Yes.
I know Jackson Ferris is still
Jackson Ferris might be in his 20s, but
okay.
He's definitely, of the pieces we trade away, he's the one that like has a potential to backfire on us the most, because he was like 2nd round pick in 2022, had been
lively arm.
Yeah. But I mean, Michael Busch, I mean, he was the guy I was like most worried about going into the season, and he's delivered in every way he possibly could have at this point.
He's off to a good start.
Yeah, off to a really good start. Doesn't look out of place at first base. Made a great play, as I said, to end the game on Friday. Had a huge home run when the Cubs were only up by a run on Friday's game. Widen the gap a little bit, makes you feel a little bit better. Busch, I mean, I looked it up. He had a 1061 OPS over the course of this series, 4 RBIs in 3 games. I mean,
2 homers.
Yeah, only the 1 homer, but he had 2 doubles as well. Because he had the
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry. It was the home run on Friday, and then the bases clearing double on
yesterday.
Sunday, right? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Yeah. So I mean that was it was a great series for Michael Busch. And we talked about it at the game too. Like Busch coming into that series was batting like a $189. And when you look at the advanced metrics, like he was hitting the ball hard. I think he was top 5 in the National League for hard hit rate. And he was just kind of hitting into a lot of bad luck. So he was just kind of hitting into some outs where it's like when you're hitting the ball that hard, like eventually those hits are going to drop. And I mean, they did. They started dropping, and it was extra base power too, which was really exciting. Because I mean, we knew that like coming in, like if Bellinger was the only lefty that was providing you some left-handed power, that this lineup was not going to be good enough, and it was going to feel a lot like last year where they lacked a lot of left-handed power in that lineup. So it was really exciting to see Michael Busch kind of turn it around, especially against the Dodgers. It was kind of like we were poking fun the revenge game, right? The revenge series, because he was traded from them.
Yeah, I mean, hell, you heard me very well on Friday. I think after the home run, I stood up and I was like, "Thanks, Dodgers," and the same content as Jason Benetti when Eloy hit that shot against the Cubs.
Yeah, and I will point out too, just for everyone who's listening, I can confirm that Mike's voice is very bellowing, and it carries incredibly well in the stadium, was complimented by several fans on Friday for his voice being able to carry. And that was a pretty jam-packed crowd on Friday. It was
Yeah, that was.
almost 35,000 people on a 40-degree day where it was cold and windy and chilly at Wrigley Field, 1:00 in the afternoon. It was a packed game, and your voice carried, man. It was very impressive.
Yeah, it's something I've always kind of taken a lot of pride with. I'm usually the guy at most games I attend that starts up like the "Let's Go Cubbies" chants and the, that I sometimes think that like this will happen a lot in the playoffs for the Cubs in years past, where like they go down early and the crowd just goes dead silent, and I hate it when that happens because Cubs fans are advertised as like the most passionate fans in sports, but like, sometimes you need to avoid that in order to like, in order to have the Cubs fall, out of the game. Yes, Joey can attest. Yeah, he sat next to me at a Hawks game a little bit ago, him and Dougie. Yeah, I've always prided myself on being a loud guy, even if at times certain significant others in my life didn't always appreciate it, but that's a story for another day.
Well, I am one significant other that appreciates it, so I will tell you that. But what we were talking about Michael Busch. I want to read you off these numbers because this is not Michael Busch, because we talked about him having a big series. But I want to talk about a player that started out this year really, really strongly. This player is batting 286, 357 on base, 514 slug, OPS of 871 with an OPS plus of 136, has 2 home runs, 2 doubles, and already 12 RBIs.
We're not talking about
that is.
Are we talking about Shohei?
No. Cubs player.
Cubs. Read me those numbers. The right number is 286.
286, 357, 514, 871, OPS plus of 136, 2 doubles, 2 home runs, 12 ribbies.
I thought you were trying to trick me into it being like Nick Madrigal for a second, because I remember you were being very complimentary of him on Friday, but he hasn't hit a home run yet. He did. Yeah. He had multiple hits, drove in a game-tying run. Yeah. But wow.
I'm surprised you don't know this. It's on the docket to talk about.
That average feels low for Seiya. Is it Seiya?
It's
really
Seiya.
Okay. Hey, that works.
It plays, man. I mean, he started off the year red hot. I mean,
yeah,
he was another player. I think like we saw the first couple games, a little bit slower, like from an average standpoint. He was hitting the ball really hard, just kind of hitting into some bad luck. But I mean, 12 ribbies already, and how many games are we in right now? I mean, Cubs are 5-3, so 12 ribbies in 8 games. I mean, at this pace, he's gonna average 200 RBIs.
Right. Yeah, he'll break another Cubs outfielder's record, Hack Wilson, with the single season record for RBI. That'd be something. I think I saw something on Twitter too that, I mean, I don't know if this is still the case now, and probably not, because it's a completely unsustainable thing for him to do. But like through, I think the end of the Rockies series, I saw that every batted ball that he hit fair was hit at over 100 miles per hour exit velocity. Like he's this is the Seiya we thought we were getting when he signed over from Japan, when he was one of the best players over there. He got off to a really slow start last year, and he didn't have a full spring training. No hiccups this spring training. Was right there on opening day.
Yep.
I said it on my other podcast I do that I think that Seiya is going to wind up being the guy who like gets the most MVP consideration on the Cubs, that leads them in most of their offensive categories. So, I mean, hell, at this point, like he's got to be high up there for actually winning the award. But I mean, it is only early April, so
it's early April. It's first couple weeks, but I think what's been really impressive is like, this is his age 29 year. right? This is this third year in the league. I think the
Mhm.
first one, I think for any kind of international player when they come over, it tends to be tough. I mean, it's a longer season. You're playing through different climates. The travel schedule is so intense compared to Japan. So there were a lot of different factors, obviously the language barrier, coming over to America, feeling comfortable like in a new country that you're living in. I mean, the human element, right? And then
Yeah.
we saw year two, we saw this bigger jump, especially in the second half of the year. After August, he was, top three hitter in all of
Yep.
baseball, from August 3rd through the end of the year. I mean, he was hitting the ball all over the place after he
It's
got sat down by
I
Ross.
I was gonna say it's the one thing you could really give David Ross credit for,
Yeah.
like, actually being a benefit, going forward beyond his time as manager, that, like, that probably did really turn Seiya Suzuki around.
Yeah.
Yeah, he looks real comfortable at the plate, he hasn't, uh, even when he makes outs, it feels like every plate appearance he's going up there and making the pitcher throw at least, like, 5, 6 pitches,
Oh,
which that's
100%.
that's exactly the recipe. Like I talked about when the Cubs announced that they were bringing back John Maley as their hitting coach this year. He was the guy that was the hitting coach in 2015, 2016 under Joe Madden. That is what they did extremely well, better than any other Cubs team I had ever seen, is like drive up that pitch count, force the
Yeah.
starting pitcher out of the game early. And, Seiya is now looking to be a huge part of that.
And before we move on, I think one of the things I wanted to point out too that I noticed through a couple games so far too was that although Seiya is doing that for the majority of his at bats, I think he's found a nice balance of swinging at the first pitch too, which he hadn't done in the previous years. He is known to be a very patient hitter. He would work that count and everything, but I think I saw a few more games at least to start this year where he was trying to ambush pitchers, which we didn't see a lot of, a lot from the past couple of years where he did that. So I
Right.
think that's going to be really exciting because it's going to force a pitcher to stay honest and not like, you know, uh,
Not
not
just
waste a
expect
pitch or
him
yeah,
right, not just expect him to take the first pitch with a
right,
get me over
right.
fastball or something like that. Yeah.
Exactly. So I love that. I love that he's shown a little bit more aggressiveness at the plate, while still being a guy that will drive up the pitch count, make contact, and he's been making hard contact. So, love to see that start from Say. I think he can definitely be an X factor in this offense because if it's not just Cody Bellinger, who else is it going to be? And I mean, you need at least 2 to 3 guys in that lineup that are going to create a heart of an order that have to be feared, especially when you get into the playoffs when you are going to face a lot of strikeout guys, right? You got to put the ball in
Yeah,
play.
exactly.
And if you have Cody Bellinger, who's great at, two strike approach, you've got Swanson who could put the ball in play. You've got Horner who
Right.
could put the ball, Hap gets on base and puts the ball in plays. And then Seiya, I mean, that could be huge. So, um, all right, so let's jump into the other Japanese player that we have on our team, Shota Imanaga, who has had a really brilliant start to his Cup career. I
It's
mean,
outstanding.
can't draw it up any better.
Right. It's a shame that the rain delay happened when it did yesterday because it kind of
Yeah,
forced him out of the game where he couldn't record the win. But my God, like it's been unreal with this guy. Like to go out in your first two starts to let me pull up his numbers here. I mean,
well,
he's pitched what 10 innings, he's
mhm,
struck out 12, he's walked nobody yet. He still
nobody.
hasn't walked anyone, only allowed 4 hits to this point. I,
Yep,
yeah, we got something good with this guy, man. And
it's a good
again,
start.
like can't I guess the good karma is on his side for really getting out there and appealing himself to Chicago. Singing the "Go Cubs Go" and having Chelsea Dagger be his entrance music.
That was awesome. Yeah, it was beautiful.
Yeah,
And one thing, so this is, I mean, you called it out, and I think one of our last casts, and I mean, you hit the nail on the head. Like, the one thing that I really love about this guy is he's not afraid of the moment. Like, he embraces the moment. He wants the ball in his hand in those moments. And I'm going to show a video that you actually took from Sunday,
yesterday.
the
Yep.
yesterday, the day of the game delay. This was awesome. I'm just going to show it. There are not many pitchers that I have seen that have made Shohei look like he's swinging out of his shoes.
Right. Exactly. I mean, the Cubs actually posted a really good version of that too, from like right behind home plate on their Instagram that
Mm-hmm.
I wound up sharing on my story as well. Um, I mean, yeah, to make the consensus, best player in baseball look embarrassed like that, it's not many people can do that.
That was a hell of a cut, man. And I mean, his helmet flew off. He was spinning in
Right.
circles. I mean, he looked like Javier Baez trying to swing at a slider 8 feet off the plate. I mean, that's what it
Well,
looked like.
to reference one of his other countrymen, maybe Kosuke Fukudome, because remember he would
Mm,
always have to do like the running start out of the box, and sometimes he'd spin himself into the ground
yeah, it was like
on
that
those swings and
helicopter
misses.
swing.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, what a like you said. I mean, a great start for Shota, and I love that he's really embraced Chicago. I love that he's embraced the moment, and
Yep.
I think like moments like that where it's like you're going up against the best hitter in baseball, and he was pumped. He was pounding his fist like he
Hmm.
was jacked up. I mean, I love the emotion that he shows on the mound and doesn't throw super hard. I mean, hits about 94, 95. I think that was a 94 mile per hour fastball that rode up in the zone, but doesn't throw crazy hard. Just man, he could pitch, man. He's a pitcher.
And I'll say this, not to get ahead of ourselves in a segment we'll talk about later, but as we see pitchers league wide that throw, that are starting pitchers that
Yep.
kind of overexert themselves, we've had the news come around, these past few days of guys going down and having to get Tommy John surgery.
Yep.
It may be beneficial to have a guy like Shota leading the rotation that isn't going to be super reliant on going max effort on every single pitch. I mean, I don't know if that is his max effort or not, but it wouldn't be as much of a stress to, throw top out at like 94, 95 compared to what 100 miles an hour would do.
Yeah. It also makes me wonder if like the front office is very intentional about the pitchers that they go after because if you're noticing like the pitchers that are currently on the Cubs rotation, I talk about it a lot. Like I want to see some strikeout stuff. Like I want to see guys that throw heat. I want to see guys that can strike out guys with a 100-mile-per-hour fastball and can locate, got good spin rate. But they don't really have that on their rotation. They have a lot of guys that hit maybe like mid 90s, and I'm wondering if that's just super intentional because you have Carter Hawkins coming from like the Cleveland organization who has drafted and developed fireballers. Like
Yep.
Shane Bieber threw very hard for a long time.
Mhm.
Corey Kluber was a hard thrower for a long time. I'm
Right.
trying to think of their closer Clase and who's their pitcher last year that really stuck out. That
Are you talking about Tristan McKenzie or
yes,
Tanner Bib?
yep,
Okay.
yeah. And I know that was I want to say McKenzie was a trade, wasn't it from Washington? I can't remember
That is
or
a
if that
good
was their draft pick.
question.
But regardless, I mean they find guys that throw the ball hard, and I'm just wondering like if this is intentional, if it's just by design, or maybe it's just coincidence because it seems like the Cubs rotation they just pick up a bunch of guys that they can locate and they've got good spin rate. I know they care about that because they put their guys in the lab, but
Right.
not a lot of like
Well,
heavy
and
arms.
not a lot, but again, I think you hit the nail on the head right there. I think it is part of the plan, and like because they are so good defensively up the middle as they are with Dansby and Nico and Cody Bellinger in center field, even Ian Happ out in left field, who made a real bad gaff on Friday, but has 2 Gold Gloves, to his credit.
Yeah.
Um, when you have a defense that good, it's something you can afford to not go super crazy on. To answer your question about Tristan McKenzie, he was actually drafted. He was a Carter Hawkins pick. He was drafted
Okay.
first round in one of those bullshit Cardinals picks they get, with the supplemental thing
Oh yeah.
in 2015. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
Well, let's move forward. Like we said, we're off to a pretty good start to start the year. The homestand was really strong. You're facing the World Series champs, the defending champs, the first series to start the year. So we knew that was a tough series. But I want to talk Craig Counsell. I mean, what if you have you noticed any difference between Craig Counsell now, like this team versus the David Ross era, or does it feel the same? Is there anything that stuck out that stands out to you that you've really been like, yeah, that's a difference maker.
I mean, to me, it's early, but I mean, I am much more higher on his lineups than I was on Ross. Ross,
Mm,
I feel like, you know, my big complaint all last year was, guys like Patrick Wisdom were getting playing time when they didn't exactly deserve it, especially when the
yeah.
matchup didn't favor them.
Yep.
The you know, the how he has it going now for most games has been, Bellinger and Suzuki hitting back to back in the lineup, which down the stretch last year, those were your two best players. But
Really good.
Ross had Dansby Swanson hitting in between those two during the time when like the Cubs were starting to blow it, and he was kind of a big part of it because of how poorly he was hitting.
Yep.
And teams were taking advantage of that. They were walking either Bellinger to get to Swanson or Suzuki to get to Swanson, so they wouldn't have to face them back to back and knew they had an out in between there.
Yep.
So yeah, the better lineups for sure. And just to me, like, I put it out on a poll on Twitter earlier today, but if you had told me going into this Dodgers series that no Cubs pitcher would last beyond 4.2 innings pitched, and that does come with a caveat for what Imanaga, went through yesterday because the rain delay shortened his day. But if you told me that none of them would go 5 innings at all,
Yeah.
with David Ross managing this team, how many games do you think they would have won in that, with him having to like have his hands tied, relying on the bullpen as heavily as he did? I do think he did get a little bit lucky on Friday in the fact that Drew Smyly came in and he shoved against the Dodgers in April. And as I said to you and Matt and Camille that we're sitting with, he dominates against the April Dodgers. If you remember his, near perfect
Yeah.
game from last
I was
year.
there. Yep.
Yep, same. Me and those two guys I was with too. They were there too.
The Mark Sanchez butt fumble game.
Oh God, yeah,
Yeah.
that's good.
Yan
That's a good
Gomes.
way to put it. Yan Gomes butt fumble game.
God,
But
that
you
was
know what?
tough.
You bring up Yan Gomes. That's another thing too. Like the playing time distribution between the catchers, because that's been
Yeah.
that's a very demanding position. And I think by the end of this year, it's probably going to be Miguel Amaya getting the majority of the playing time. And Yan Gomes hasn't exactly had the best start to this season at the plate, but the fact that you're getting his heavy workload for playing time as much as you are to start this season, I think that will really benefit Amaya and make it so that he is, can be more heavily used in the more important games later down the stretch. And one thing that actually, now that we're on this topic, one thing that Ross did that pissed me off to no freaking end, would be he would have a catcher as his DH for a lot of those games. And it's like, what are you going to do if your catcher in the game has to be taken out for whatever reason? He gets ejected, he gets injured, you lose your DH. I mean, come
Mm-hmm.
on, Ross. You only have 2 on the roster, but no playing any sort of games when it comes to counsel. He's actually like got it figured out, and it almost seems like this stuff should be just basic baseball acumen. It's a breath of fresh air to see a manager that, thinks kind of how I do.
Yeah. I think like the couple things that I've really noticed, and I think the thing is it's really hard to determine because Craig Counsell is known for his bullpen management, right? I think that's the thing that
Mhm.
most people will say, like, hey, this guy's the master of the bullpen. He knows how to use those arms, when to use them, when to pull a guy. And it's hard to tell this early on because you've got guys like Hector Neris, which we were hoping are going to come in and just be like that power guy in the lineup, just couldn't stop giving up hard hit contact. So it's
He's struggled a little early on. I
yeah.
feel like he'll eventually bounce back, especially, you know what? I'm actually, this is kind of early, but I feel like he will. This road trip upcoming will be good for him because they're going on the road to 2 like pitchers
Okay.
parks in, Seattle and San Diego. He isn't going to be pressured to have to strike everyone out. He can afford to give up, contact and not have it, cost him.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, one thing that I want to talk about that I'm really just impressed with. I think you hit it. Is the lineup. I think the lineup construction is so much better than what we were hoping for. I think we were all kind of pining for Ian Happ to lead off last year. Um, and it's finally kind of come to fruition at the expense of Nico Horner moving down the lineup, which has gotten off to a cold start, which is fine. If he's got off to a cold start, bat him down in the lineup, give him some protection with maybe a couple other guys around him. Eventually, I think you said it at the game, like this would be an ideal candidate to bat ninth, get some extra at bats, almost like a second leadoff hitter there. But I want
Right.
to call it these. I want to call it some things to you right now, some stats. So I got it pulled up. So right now, the Dodgers are leading the National League in runs, 69 runs. Okay,
Nice.
the Chicago, yeah, nice. The Cubs have 58 runs, so 11 runs less. Now, caveat: Dodgers have played 3 more games than the Cubs. So when you do the math, the Dodgers are averaging 5.75 runs per game. The Cubs are averaging 6.44 runs per game to start the year,
Mm-hmm.
which has been wildly amazing. They also are third in the National League in walks, with again 3
Yep.
games less than their opponent. The only 2 teams that are ahead of them right now are the Dodgers, who have 49 walks to their 45, have played 3 games more. And surprisingly, the Pittsburgh Pirates, who have 50 walks in 10 games.
Yeah. Pirates off to a real good start too, but that's also kind of what they do and then
Yeah,
fall
hot
off
start.
around
And
June. Yeah.
exactly.
um,
But
did you happen to see the OBP leaders, by the way? Because
that
I
was
just
my
looked at
next
that.
thing I was going to bring up. So the
Okay.
OBP leaders for the National League at 363 are the Chicago Cubs. So, and this is, this we were starting to see this last year, where this team did a really great job of getting on base. That's what they did. That's what they were known for. I want to
Yep.
say they were top 5 or 6 in all of baseball when it came to that last year, when it came to offense. So looks like it's carried over this year. It looks like they are really in tune with getting the ball in play, working counts, drawing their walks. I think we saw it with Michael Bush, young
Yep.
hitter, pretty patient hitter for a young guy, for a rookie. I mean, he was working some counts, and even if he got out, I mean, they weren't like 3 strike counts, man. He was working those counts. So I think you're starting to see
Mm-hmm.
it a little bit more. I think we even saw Morel working some counts, which if he can get that strikeout rate down, that's only going to serve him better. But I've really been impressed with this offense to start the year.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I mean, we with all the stats you let off there. I mean, OBP, like that's the stat you honestly can control the most of any of them. I'm just looking through the Cubs like baseball reference page right now. I mean, yeah, Bush 375 OBP, Swanson 432. Swanson, I'm actually surprised he's taking quite a few walks. He's got 6. Nico's got 6. Cody's got 6.
Yep.
Hap's got 7. That might be the most
Wow.
surprising of them all. That Hap has 7 out of the leadoff spot. You would think that he wouldn't be seeing many pitches out of the zone as the leadoff hitter, but
Yep.
yeah, I mean, and it just like I know what you said about Seiya, previously that like he has been a little bit more aggressive early in the count. But to me, like I think that is like a you know like we touched on. Sometimes those first pitches can be meatballs, can be hittable pitches.
Hmm.
Um, I feel like the more effective strategy is like going about it how they have done it. Drive up that pitch count as much as you can on that starting pitcher. Um,
Yep.
you
We saw
know,
it Friday against Bobby Hill, right?
Bobby Hill, you mean Bobby Miller?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Get,
Bobby Miller. Sorry,
it looked like Bobby Hill out there on the mound.
Bobby
Yeah,
Hill. Yeah, no, they
I mean,
worked up that pitch count. We called it. I mean, they were working that count. I think we saw the first inning. They went pretty quickly, if I'm not mistaken, right? And then after that, they really started just working the count.
right. I'll actually pull it up right here. But Bobby Miller, I think through the end of one inning, had thrown about 14 pitches, and that
Yep.
was also one that like Kyle Hendricks labored through pretty badly in
Yeah.
the first inning after like the Ian
Yep.
Happ drop. But then, like it's amazing. baseball is so weird, man. Like we really don't say it enough, but baseball is so freaking weird because like you can look so dominant one inning and then just
Mhm.
completely befuddled the next inning. Bobby Miller wound up only going 1.2 innings pitched through 58 pitches. I
Yeah,
mean,
and I wanna
58
say that
pitches in under
yeah,
2 innings.
and, like, 40 of those pitches, I wanna say, were in the 2nd inning, so and he didn't even get out of it, so that was a
Hmm.
I mean, that was a hell of a it was a showcase of what this offense really could do, and that's what was really exciting, so,
Matt,
hey, if
getting
they
way
could go 9-0.
overconfident there. I mean, I listen. Maybe the first 6-0. I'm a little nervous about going Arizona though. And yes, Brian, it's a common phrase I use with him. Shout out to Bors and Bernstein. Terry Bors would always say that to callers that would say "we" when referring to their teams.
Fuck those guys. Uh,
Oh
alright. More
man,
more important question. Did you get a chance to, check out the eclipse today?
I did not.
Oh,
I
wow, okay.
Yeah, I was a little busy at home. I wasn't in a spot where I could really just stop what I was doing, and yeah, I was getting some housework done. So no, I didn't. But it was saw all the pictures on Twitter. I always makes for some good jokes too. Saw our guy Mailman Jack who was saying like these transition lenses are getting way dark, but yeah.
Yeah, I was out there. So I kept my daughter home today because I wanted her to see it.
Nice,
So I work from home, usually on Mondays. So I kept her home. We kind of went out a couple times, had my little glasses here to take her outside. It was so funny. She was holding it up. She was putting them over her eyes, holding them tight. She's looking at it.
nice.
She's like, "Wow, this is really cool. I could see the moon." Looking around like, I don't see any stars there. I thought it's nighttime, and I'm like, that's not. So,
Aw.
it was great. It was a good time, but, you thought about this, as a segment, which I thought was hilarious, and you posed a question, who, past or present from the Cubs, would be the most likely to stare at the eclipse without glasses, like, just straight eyeballs to the sun?
Right, right. Go full Donald Trump with it. Yeah. Um, I
Jeez.
I feel like on this team, if you don't mind me going first on this, I
Go
feel
for it,
like
yeah.
on this team, we did mention him that he's off to a nice little start and nice scrappy little player, but a guy who I think gets a little over aggressive sometimes when he's on the bases. I think Nick Madrigal might he might go blind if he looks too up on it. I mean, especially with how much those rays will like really shine down on a guy as short as he is too.
Yeah.
That has a long way to travel. So I think it would be Nick Madrigal that would be most likely to go blind by staring at an eclipse.
Yeah, I was thinking through this and I'm like, man, I want to pick somebody who I think would just be funny to mention, right?
Hmm.
I'm going to dig a little bit deeper. I'm going to go back into the early 2000s
Okay.
and I'm going to say Milton Bradley would be the player to stare into the sun because Milton Bradley did not give a shit about
No.
anything but himself. And I think he had that kind of bravado and that kind of like
Hmm.
like that narcissism and like that ideology that he was just you know better than everyone and better than anything, that nothing could beat him, that he'd be dumb enough to stare into the sun just to prove that he was better than the sun. So I'm gonna
Yes, I think there was a really viral tweet from one of the Barstool guys a few years ago from like some golf event where he said something like, "Some guy just called me a pussy because I put on sunscreen. Imagine thinking you're tougher than the sun." Milton Bradley definitely thinks he's tougher than the sun. Like
perfect. See? There you go.
there's not a battle that guy doesn't think he can't lose. And we saw he's dumb enough to throw a ball into the stands when there's not 3 outs and there's still a runner on base. So he's dumb enough to just do that too. I love this comment from my guy
That's a good
Matt.
one. Yeah.
Yeah, Cody. Yep, the chant for Cody.
Yeah,
Shout out to my
Cody
guy
might be a good
Alex.
one too. I mean, he usually, I mean, he's probably stoned
Yeah.
75% of the time. Like, maybe during baseball games, we don't know, but I would assume, that's the only portion of his time where he's not high. So I
Right.
would think that he'd probably, yeah, yeah, man, off into the sun.
Yeah, that's sick, man. Um, just to put it out there, I think a guy from a previous Cubs team that would stare into eclipse. Um, you know, there I think the low-hanging fruit answer would be like a Starlin Castro maybe, because there have been times he had like his back turned around to a play. They
Yeah.
caught him on ESPN. He may not have always hustled hardest, but there's a different Latino Cub shortstop that did a lot of dumb things before he came up. Do you remember Ronnie Cedeno
Oh, yeah.
in
Okay.
2005, 2006 Cubs fashion?
All
He
right.
he one time with in a game against the Cardinals got thrown out stealing a base when he was on first base on what was a walk for the hitter, but he overslid the base. And he was also a guy too that when he was on base would like get hit by balls a lot too. Like so, I feel like he wouldn't like intentionally. He might not intentionally, look up at it and like know exactly what he's doing, but he might be someone who like someone might just run up behind him and like tilt his head back to stare up into it and clockwork orange him into blindness at that point, just because of how unlucky and sometimes dumb he had been.
Yep. No, I love that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, back to a little bit more serious talk. You want to talk about at the beginning of the show. We talked through
Yeah.
like some of the big pitcher injuries that we've seen to start this year, and we've heard like some mixed things. I know like I didn't get a chance to pull up this tweet that you sent me, but I'm just going to read it off. Um this was a Spencer Strider quote that you sent me
Yeah.
earlier today, and this was from today, right? From USA Today
No, it was
article.
earlier in spring training because
Okay.
it was like one of the first interviews he did when they
So
first brought
okay,
him
so
up.
this is spring training before his injury. So he said, quote unquote, there's an injury epidemic in the game regardless of velocity. If anything, the league is making rule changes despite an injury epidemic, very well be encouraging injuries, such as the pitch clock, limiting the number of pitchers on rosters, how many pitching changes you can make, how many mound visits you can have. All those things are making pitching harder and potentially, I think, making health more difficult to manage. With injury rates where they are, I don't know how we can blindly decrease the clock after the worst injury season in baseball, arguably, without having a conversation about injuries. The league talks about creating more action on the field. Well, when the best players in the leagues are hurt, how much interest is there in the game? And
That's heavy
now
stuff, yeah. And
could
now he
potentially be
finds
going up.
himself going under the knife, yeah.
Potentially, right? Like, do we know yet? Like, is he Tommy
Uh,
John candidate or what?
well, he got taken out for, like, elbow soreness from his last start,
Yep.
but, I mean, we have seen league-wide, a
Shane
couple guys,
Bieber,
Shane
Garrett Cole.
Bieber, Garrett Cole, today with the Reds, what's his name? TJ Antone, a reliever.
Wow.
I think there was news about Framber Valdez from the Astros, like, getting
Wow.
his elbow evaluated. So, yeah, I mean, it's a tough situation. I mean, these pitchers, they get so I mean, the reason why they get so highly scouted and touted as much as they do is because they have the ability to throw hard, but it just it's it's scary to think that like they some of the best pitchers in baseball are gonna have their careers put in jeopardy this way. And
Yeah.
granted, we're at a point where Tommy John has been established as a pretty successful surgery to
Right.
have.
Not career ending, but
Not
definitely
career
career
ending, but
slowing.
exactly. I mean, it's one that is definitely going to cost them when it comes to trying to earn more money.
Yep.
Um, the thing is, though, I don't necessarily know that the pitch clock has all that much to do with it. It's just these injuries were happening well before the pitch clock was a thing. I mean, we've had to go through this quite a bit. It
Kerry
freaking
Wood, Mark
costs
Pryor.
Kerry Wood, Mark Pryor. Yeah, you know.
Right.
Um,
So one thing I wanted to point out, and I wish I would have had this quote pulled up. I heard a interview with Tyler Glass now. I want to say it was last year, if I'm not mistaken, after he was injured.
Mhm.
Um, and he was mentioning how not only was it all these rule changes, but it was also the amount of attention that the league and umpires were putting on pitchers with sticky stuff, like checking for
Yep.
sticky stuff and any substance that they were using. He openly said, I only used sunscreen and rosin, and it would help me get a little bit of a better grip on the ball. So it was a little bit, it wasn't even necessarily sticky. It just wasn't as dusty and chalky as
Correct.
like just like a dry baseball, right? So say what you will, if it's cheating, not cheating, whatever the case is, right? If you want to say it's a sticky substance and you want it out of the game, whatever, fine.
Mhm.
But his point was that it allowed him to basically grab a baseball tighter, or a little bit looser, which was helping out his tendons and everything. So when he was gripping the ball, he was able to grip it in a way because he knew he was going to get a good handle on it, that he didn't have to dig his hands into the seams or into the leather any tighter than he was doing now. So what he was saying in this interview is that with removing that part of the game as well, and then adding on the pitch clock and adding in all these limitations for these pitchers, right, to move quicker and move faster, that
Mhm.
he was having to grip the baseball even harder so it wouldn't slip, so he could get more spin on the baseball. And after he had a pitch, he was putting so much tension in his arm because he was squeezing it that all these tendons were tightening up.
Yep.
And then as soon as he let it go, that's when they would loosen up. And then you have to get into your motion and get set to do it again, that there wasn't enough time for it um to relax basically and just decompress from that motion. And then
Yeah.
you're doing that over and over and over again because you're trying to work through a pitch count. That he said that he had a game where, when he was using the sunscreen rosin, that he'd be able to get through a game fine. That the first game that he noticed it, that they started checking, he was doing that, gripping the baseball tighter. He noticed the next game that he was feeling way more sore than he had ever felt in his arm
Yeah.
and in his elbow specifically. That midway through the game, he's like, this is not right. And then after that game, he was like, this is definitely not right. And then that's when he had Tommy John, I believe. It was like right after that
Yeah.
game. So it's
I
pretty
mean,
interesting stuff.
it really is, and I don't think there's any sort of like sticky stuff, speculation going on anymore. I think that all kind of died down
Yeah, the
over the
check.
past few years, but yeah, I it definitely is something that um when MLB cracked down on, that took some sort of adjustment period from the pitchers who were using it to
Right.
try to get back to normal at that point. I mean, it must have felt like, Henry Rowan Gardner after he tripped over that ball, you know?
The rubber retraction.
Yeah, exactly. um, listen, if the root cause of all this is that we can pin this all on Trevor Bauer, that would be great too, because he was the guy that like first uncovered all the pitchers using sticky stuff. Um,
Hmm.
at any rate, I mean, he's it's a tough break for these pitchers that
Yeah.
were like we said, Strider was like one of the Cy Young favorites going into this year. Garrett Cole, the defending
Yep.
AL Cy Young thrower now. Baseball is not, or I mean, you could say this about any sport really, but baseball does somewhat struggle for viewership. It's better when your stars are playing and you need them out there,
Yep.
and maybe you need to sit these guys down and tell them like, hey, preserve yourself a little bit. You don't have to throw 96, 97, 98 on everything. Hell, show them some Cubs tape, show them Javier Assad and Shota Imanaga going out there pumping 92, 93 and getting guys out.
You
you
know what
know
we need? We need to
what
bring back Rothschild and the towel
the
throw.
towel drill.
Yeah, that's what we need. That's what we really
Yeah,
need in baseball.
definitely. Yep. God,
All
forgot
right.
about the towel drill with him.
Jeez,
Jesus.
I know. All right. Well, let's move it along. We've got a new segment that I wanted to start out and try out today. So, for those of you that don't know, uh, Mike Praz is like the beautiful mind of Chicago Cubs baseball. There are things that Mike remembers that outdate his life.
Yes.
And like, it is unbelievable the amount of things that Mike can memorize, remember, bring back, retract at a moment's notice.
Yep.
It's truly impressive. You know, we were sitting out there on Friday, and I'm just kind of listening to Mike talk and being like, "Oh yeah, I remember this happened in like 2006 in May." And I'm like, "What the fuck is this guy's like?" You are the Russell Crowe of Chicago baseball stats.
I'm the Cubs version of Stump the Schwab. If you remember
Yes.
that from ESPN. Yeah.
So I'm gonna try this new segment. We'll see if it works. I'm
Okay.
gonna do on this day in baseball. Uh this happened in April 8th, 2003.
Okay.
The Cubs played the Montreal Expos on this day. They won 6-1 to start the year 4-3. Matt Clement went 7 1/3 innings with 1 earned run, 5 walks, 5 strikeouts. Moises Alou led the offense with 3 RBIs. Great game against the Montreal Expos before they moved over to Washington.
Yeah.
So 2003, April 8th. Okay. Who was the starting first baseman on that Cubs team on that game?
Wow. So this would have been before they acquired Randall Simon. They started the year with Hesop Choi and Eric Karros to start the year. I feel like you're throwing me a curveball here with like who that could possibly be. Did you if you didn't already reveal it, if you didn't already reveal it, don't do it. But if you did say it, did you say who the starting pitcher for the Pirates was that day?
Or for the Expos?
Or I'm sorry, for the Expos.
Ooh,
Yes.
I did not. I probably would have to look that up again.
Okay.
That's a good caveat.
Um,
Let me see if I can look that up.
I'm just thinking like, Karros was a righty, Choi was a lefty. I'm gonna be fully honest. I don't fully remember this game in particular. But
The pitcher was Zach Day.
Zach Day. Okay. I think he was a lefty or maybe I'm confusing him with Zach Duke of the Pirates. I'm not sure, but
Zach Day was a righty.
Zach Day was a righty. All right. So that would lead me to believe it'd be Hesop Choi starting at first base.
Ding, ding, ding. Hesop Choi was the first baseman in that game. So amazing job, Praz. Yet again, Hesop Choi is a name I always forget. I always forget that he was a Cup during that year because I always like equate like, I always think about Eric Karros and I think like Randall Simon being acquired later in the year. And then the following year was Derek Lee, who ended up taking over first base.
Traded for Hesop Choi.
Yep.
Awesome.
Yeah. All right. Well, that was fun. Maybe we'll continue to do that, but
absolutely. Maybe I might have to put some on you. Or if you have that extensive
I don't even know
knowledge,
I thought I did until I met you. And I think as I get older, my memory's starting to get a little bit more shot. So I don't know if I'm the right person to play that game anymore.
Right.
But let's jump into our flying the W's and taking the L's.
Hello, you play to win the game.
Addison is next. Doors open on the left at Addison.
I say one thing. Go. Let's go. That's a W. That's E1. That's E1. That's a W.
Is a L7 weenie.
All right. L7 weenie. So I guess I'll kick off. I'm going to start off with my W. My W is Cubs. Us. To start off, it's us. We get the W because as a partnership, as a podcast, we went to our first game together ever, and the Cubs beat the Dodgers at home. The Shohei Ohtani led Dodgers with Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, that all-star lineup, and they won. So we're 1-0 as a tandem. So I'm going to say we get the W.
Let's go. Here's to plenty more with that. Yeah.
Also, my other actually, I'm gonna let you go ahead. I'm gonna let you go ahead and do yours first.
I got two of each. I will say with my big W. So if you didn't notice already, I did a little wardrobe change while that highlight was going on. Got Bert Kreischer show, the Machine, or Bert Kreischer shirt here.
Nice.
I saw him on Thursday night. And in addition to that, also the last 3 Cubs games I went to, didn't pay for a single ticket. I want to give out W's to every single person that was able to give me a ticket. So, Thursday night I went to this show. Got a friend, Maria. Her and I work together at Portillo's downtown. I've known her since 2014. She's a great person. She's gone through a lot in life. I hope she's doing well. I hope she's watching. As far as Friday's game goes, I went downtown Chicago back in February. Hold on, let me fix my hair for a second because this is looking real emo here. There we go. Okay. I went to downtown Chicago the day before Cubs tickets went on sale, and the Cubs had a promo event going on around random locations around Chicago where they were giving away codes for free tickets. So shout out to the Cubs for the free tickets for Friday's game that you and I both attended, along with my guy Matt and my guy Camille. Saturday, my guy Matt Crawford, who well known among some of the commenters, he's maybe a Sox fan, but some people call him a Cubs fan on White Sox Twitter, so I'm not really sure. I've seen him photographed with Ronnie Woo Woo. I've seen him talking about some videos talking about what he likes to do to PCA. So, shout out Matt Crawford. Thank you very much for the ticket then. And then yesterday, a friend of mine up in Milwaukee, Colleen Henley, she's a season ticket holder as well. She couldn't make it down, reached out to me, let me have the tickets. So to everyone who complimented me with tickets over the past 4 days, whether it's the Cubs or Bert Kreischer at the United Center, thank you very much. You guys all get a W.
That's awesome. All right, so I'm going to move on to my last W before I move on to my L's. So my last W, Cubs fans, Cubs viewers specifically on Marquee Sports Network for this. I mean, if you're just going to keep giving out free content, I think I'm going to have to reconsider our partnership because I feel like we need to charge for that kind of viewership.
That's true. That's true. I may have to fire up only Praz at this point, along with Baloney fans. He's talked about doing that. Well. Yeah. What can I say, man? I had a hell of a time on Wednesday night.
Clearly.
We'll maybe maybe might not be the last time the shirt pops off this season. We'll see. If it
pops off later, that's fine because it's only going to get warmer from here.
Right.
It was 30 degrees that night, maybe even colder with wind chill.
And especially by the lake too. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. By the lake, that was, truly impressive. I mean, unbelievable. I got, I can't even tell you the amount of text messages that I got that was like, look at these guys out in center field right now. They're nuts. These guys are crazy. And I'm like, that's my podcast partner. So it was awesome.
Did Aaron happen to text you at all? Like when that was happening okay. I'm surprised she didn't. Cause all right.
I wish she would have. I mean, I got tagged in all the Instagram stuff
for sure.
And then I started reposting and I was like, what the fuck? And I'm like, is that Praz? Yep, it's Praz. Conversely, I'm going to go with my L's here. Okay. I'm going to kick it off here. So, dance choreographers everywhere get the L for this. Hold on.
Cubs news and in-depth feature stories presented by Jeff Lukovich, your local nationwide insurance agent. Visit JeffLuke.com nationwide is on your side. There's David Putty when you need him. Devils.
Praz. They did like a double punch thing. There was like a little bit of like a hip swing thing.
Yeah.
I think that was the YMCA. I'm assuming that's what you were going for.
I mean, look, we all know what it is, like in the verses, you point and you turn, and then you obviously make the letters, but like you don't really know what to do in between there. So I was just kind of making it up as I went, you know.
I feel bad for any of those dance shows that have judges that would like, instantly boot you from those shows. So
For sure. For what
they
it's
get the
worth,
L.
you heard you heard JD there like, saying, "Put your shirt back on." I wound up seeing both him and Boog come down from the booth yesterday and gave them each a fist bump and let them know I was the guy out in the bleachers on Wednesday night, and they both loved it. and I even told them, like, I know you gave me some shit for it, but I even found it funny. So,
Hilarious.
shout out to those guys. Yeah.
All right, who you got for your L's?
Well, I guess one other W, but we already mentioned it. Michael Bush, with the Revenge Series, homer, 4 RBIs, 1061 OPS. You know what? I'm considering that to be payback for what Manny Ramirez did to us when he was a Dodger in the 08 NLDS.
Just so early.
Exactly. All right, so L for me, a guy who I normally see in the comments here, but I don't know that I've seen it. Oh no, he was here earlier tonight. My guy Tony, one of my best friends, he was supposed to join us on Friday, and he had a little bit of a dental emergency and couldn't wind up making it. So, feel bad for him, but L to him there. But a very big thank you to him for loaning the ticket over to my friend Camille, who didn't previously have one at that point. And then my biggest L of all, it's going to Dodgers third baseman Miguel Rojas for being a little crybaby in yesterday's game right before the rain delay started, was over talking to the umpires, talking about how he couldn't, he was standing in a puddle and he couldn't make a throw. You know what? The Cubs defense didn't make an error. Dansby Swanson was having no problems making plays out there.
Yeah.
It didn't seem to affect them. And guess what, Miguel? Later in the year, in October, that's probably the weather you're going to have to play through if you want to get far, especially when you're on the road. So, Miguel Rojas, big L to you.
Love it. Fair enough. He was complaining about, what was he saying? He was complaining about playing in puddles or something like that.
Right.
Oh, sorry, we don't have LA weather year round.
Exactly.
Sometimes you're going to have to play in weather.
Right.
All right. Week predictions here, because we've got 3 against the Padres, which I believe the game should be starting soon, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Hour from now, 8:40 local time start.
Should be starting soon. So
yeah,
that's correct. So they've got the Padres. They've got 3 with the Padres. They have 3 with Seattle before we potentially reconvene on next Monday, hopefully. So that's 6 on the road on the West Coast. What do you got? Prediction.
I'm sorry. You said 3 with the Padres, 3 with the Mariners, correct? Okay.
Yep.
I am going to say that they are going to take 2 out of 3 from the San Diego Padres.
Okay.
And I'm going to say that they take 2 out of 3 from the Seattle Mariners as well. So I got them going 4-2 there, and then hopefully more good things to come in Arizona, which after last year is a place that gives us a little bit of the chills, but always good to get off to a head start, the 2 series before then. How about yourself?
I got them going 4-2 as well. And I think what's really interesting to start the year is, like, we've talked a lot of shit about the NL Central, and the NL Central has every team at 500 or above. They are the only division in the National League right now that has that many teams 500 and above.
Pump the brakes for a second there, because there is one team in the NL Central that allowed the Miami Marlins to get their first win yesterday. And you know what? I'm going to make this my late addition for an L. Big L to the St. Louis Cardinals for allowing the Miami Marlins to beat them when they had already been winless at that point.
Yeah. Looking at it, you've got the NL East, who only has 1 winning team right now. And then you have the NL West, who only has 1 winning team. So,
yep.
I don't know what that means, but it's early, but it's just still funny because we were shitting on the NL Central all year. But
as we talked about, the Pirates routinely always get off to hot starts and then fall off. So, we'll see how it all plays out. But
any other bold predictions from a player standpoint? I know you said that I forgot who you said early in the show that you thought was going to have a good week before we reconvene.
Just Hector Neris. I think this will be the week he bounces back, and the fact that they're going to 2 pitchers' parks, it'll favor him.
Okay. I'm going to go with Nico Horner. I think Nico's going to bounce back this week.
Okay. He's gotten off to a slow start. I would love to see Nico get on base, multiple times and steal some bases already. Has he had one yet this year? Because he stole like 40 bases last year.
Yeah.
And
I think he might have
that's
one. I'm not
almost been a
100% sure yet.
non-factor this year.
Yeah.
He hasn't even made an attempt yet this year.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to call right now. Nico Horner is going to get at least one stolen base this week, but I think you're going to see a lot of on base, that on base percentage go up, and I think he's actually going to start hitting the ball a little bit harder. So I'm going to go with Nico as my candidate. But
let's go, Nico.
All right, y'all. Well, Cubs play tonight against San Diego. We've got, I believe, is it Javier Assad on the mound tonight against an old friend, Yu Darvish. So that'll be a fun matchup. Let's see if the Cubs can keep it rolling here. It's going to be tough, obviously, going against you, but we said 2 out of 3 against San Diego, 2 out of 3 against Seattle. So let's hope for a 4-2 road trip before we head to Arizona. And then after that, I'm going to say, who do they play next? Miami at home, I think, for
4-game series against Miami. Yep.
So, all right. Well, as always, thanks for joining. Really appreciate it. Again, Praz, thanks for bringing me to a game. That was my first game since last year. I only went to 1 game last year, which was such a bummer, but hopefully we do some more because we're 1-0. So if we keep that mojo going, man, we might have to make some playoff games. So
exactly. There we go.
All right, y'all. Well, thanks for joining, and we'll hopefully see you next week.
Have a good night. Go Cubs.